All right, here's our first video tutorial in the architectural class involving Revit. And just watch this video. It won't be too long. I'm going to give you an introduction to the program and the menu structure, and then you can open it in our next video and follow along. And I'll walk you through some tutorial information. So, what is Revit? Revit is it's a parametric architectural design software. Meaning that you draw in 2D, but you're actually creating a 3D model. So a change in one view will update the entire model. Now the software that I'm using currently in my classes and in the videos is Revit Architecture 2013. So if you download, you need to check and see what we're using in the class before you download the software to use at home. So what I've got open here is what's the basic sample problem that comes with the software. And it's a 3D model of it. And so you can see we can Revit, rotate around, pivot, look at everything. And this is our 3D view of the house. But what I want to show you about is parametric. And I'm going to open up a couple of other screens here. So we've got our 3D screen right here. Here we've got an elevation view, and in here we have a floor plan. So what we mean by parametric is that one change, we can change it in one plan, and it affects the whole model. So if I highlight the door, you can see in the other model, in the other views, that it highlighted that also. Let's say I want to move this door. Let's change our dimension here. Now, this particular file is in metric, so everything's in millimeters. So you see I made a change to the dimension here, and you can see it moved it in the other two views. Zoom in on this a little more. Well, let's say I change it. Right now it's a double glass door. Let's just change it to a single flush door. And you see it changes it in every view. And if I delete it, see it's gone from the model. So this is what we mean by parametric, is that in whatever you're building, it affects the entire model at one time. All right, so I'm going to pause this video and get some files opened up to move on with the next segment. Okay, when you open Revit, more than likely you'll get this pop-up screen that has all of your previous projects you may have opened recently. Projects is what we work in. That's our file that contains all our information. Families, these are the actual pieces that we put into a project, like a table. That's pretty simple, or it could be as complex as this awning family here. We'll get into families a little more later on in the course while we're working through some stuff. We typically start with a template. The program comes default with an architectural template and a construction template. And the template will have settings already set up for what it is that you're to design. Title bars, sheets, views, things like that. But for right now, we're just going to start with a new blank file. And you do this and follow along with me so you can see what I'm doing on the screen. We're just going to go through the user interface so you can open it and follow along with me. I don't want to start with no template, just to show you how this works. And we're going to go with Imperial. So this is our basic layout where we do our work. We have two windows over here to the left. The Properties window, which is whatever you're working on at that particular time, will show up here, and it will have all of the settings dealing with that. Right now the most important is the scale. This is where you set the scale that it will print at when you go to print. Down here in the browser, this shows everything you have loaded into this project. And so if we expand the views, you can see we have right now the default, it just has floor plans and ceiling plans. That's all that it has loaded into it, because we didn't load a template. We just started with a blank file. But this is where you would navigate the different areas you're going to work in. So let's look at the menu structure here for a little while. Let's go to the big purple R in the upper left. This is your typical, new, open, save, save as, export stuff. Okay. You also go here to print. But let's look at the options button. Okay. The save reminder, synchronize, that's not too important because we're not working from a network or from a file server on our projects. But the save reminder, 30 minutes is, okay, pretty good. If you're in a place working where the power may glitch or the network may drop more often, then set it to 15 minutes or so. You can go ahead and, if you're working on your home computer, you can change your username here within the program. If you're working in the classroom, it may or may not stick when you make that change. Okay, you can look through these on your own to see some things you may be able to change if you really, change from light to dark theme. One thing to check is your file locations. Here, this shows the location of the 2 template files that installed with the program, and then where you want to save your documents. Okay, if you're working on your own computer, you'll be able to modify that to wherever you're going to save your files at and your template files and things like that. Okay, that's all we're going to look at in the big purple A. But we go across to the quick access toolbar up here. Just like most Autodesk programs, it's got pretty much the same thing. You can click the drop down on the end and customize what you want in there, what you don't want. Okay. You're going to use the measure tool a lot. You're going to use dimensioning a lot. And the default 3D view, you'll use that a lot. And the switch windows. When you have multiple windows open, you'll be using that. So now let's look at the tabs across here. Architecture. Obviously, this deals with architectural things that you want to create. To begin with, we'll be working in the build palette. You want to build a wall. You come here, you choose the wall. And you have the choice of different, is it an architectural wall? Is it going to be a structural or a load-bearing wall? Because the software differentiates between the two. So you need to kind of use the correct one. Doors, windows, columns, roofs, ceilings, floors, all these kind of things, and we'll get into them, later as we go through the program. The next tab is structure, and this is when we're dealing with structural items, beams and columns, structural floors like concrete floor slabs, foundations, things of this nature. Okay. The insert tab, pretty much like most of the Autodesk things, you can import something from CAD. You can insert images, decals, markups, these things here. The one thing you will use on this as we go through the program is loading families, and we'll talk about that when we actually get to that, but just remember insert and then load family. The annotate tab is where we do all our dimensioning and text. We'll do tags, we can do color fills, things of this nature. The analyze, massing, site, collaborate, we're not going to deal with these very much. Like I was saying, my phone went off, what do you know? The analyze, massing, site, collaborate, we won't be dealing very much with those during this course. So the view tab being next, here's where you'll do your rendering, which we'll do at the end. 3D views, you add sections, you can add plans and elevations and things here. Also the tile window over here, which you can use to open up multiple windows at the same time. And one thing to notice, when you hover over an icon, if there's a keyboard shortcut, it shows up in the little help pop-up there. So the keyboard shortcut being WT will tile all the windows that you have open. And if you really like keyboard shortcuts, you can type KS on the keyboard, no enter, just KS, and it will bring up all of the keyboard shortcuts within Revit. So some of these makes it quicker. Some people like using keyboard shortcuts, some don't care. So that's how you get to it. Just type KS on the keyboard. User interface. If you happen to close your properties box or your project browser by accident, you go to user interface and you can open it back up over here. Okay. So let's go to the Manage tab. Here's where we manage some different things. Snaps is one thing. You're familiar with snaps from AutoCAD and Inventor. And here's the defaults of what are turned on, what's turned off. Notice there's keyboard shortcuts for most of these if you don't want to keep them all turned on. If you need to cycle through a snap, you just press the tab key and it will cycle through whatever is available for that, whatever you're doing at the time. Next thing let's look at is project information. Now when we start a project, we want to fill this in, okay, with as much as what you would know. Your organizational name is going to be your school, depending upon which school you're at watching this video. That's what we would put here. Client name, project address, project name, project number, these kinds of things here. The energy settings, if we're going to do an energy analysis on our building, we would make those changes in here. And we'll go through this when we're in a project. Let's go. So what we're going to be working on is a single family residence, okay? And this will help. You got to make some settings in here to do the energy analysis, and we'll talk about that later on. But you do want to fill out your project information when you begin the project and start it. Units should be pretty standard. You can see how the settings are on them. We're just going to work with the defaults on that. And location of the project. We do want to set this, and the easiest way, unless you have an exact address for your project, just go to the default city and I hit M on the keyboard and go down. Marietta, Georgia is listed there, so we can plug that in and say OK. And that's most everything on the Manage tab that we'll be dealing with here in the first part of this course anyway. So let's go to the last one, the Modify tab. And this will pop up quite often when you're working within your project. And just like in the other Autodesk programs, this is where you modify things. Cut, join, delete, move, copy, offset. All of these things are pretty standard throughout the different Autodesk softwares. Okay, so that's on the Modify tab there. All right, that's kind of a quick overview of what Revit looks like when you open it up and the menu structure. And the next video will be actually opening a project and working through a project.